We
Well, it's
were,
6:30, Diana, if you want to go ahead and begin.
yes, yes. All right, so thank you, everyone. Thank you for being in community with us today. My name is Diana Castro, and today's presentation, it's about reading, strategies for pre-reading, during reading, and post-reading. I teach French and Spanish in California at a public school, Long Beach Unified School District. If you ever heard of Snoop Dogg, then you know Long Beach. So I can think, oh, Sublime, there you go. I teach French and Spanish this year. I'm only teaching French. I'm a professor. No, I don't. I teach a class at Cal State, California State University, Long Beach, and I'm also a presenter. I have a blog thanks to Claudia Elliott, who told me like you need to make videos, and I'm like, I am not making videos on Instagram. I'll rather blog, even though I know most people don't read. I'd rather do that than like do lives on Instagram. So, and there it is. It's the castrocode.com. Let's see. Those are my students reading. My students who last year told me I don't like to read. I don't like reading. I don't remember last time I had a book in my hands. Those are my kids now reading independently. This is year 2 of French, and I took my time to build their literacy skills in level 1 so that we can get to this point where on Mondays they read independently for 10 minutes every Monday. We also read a novel last year as a class, and we're reading another one this year as well. Right, but before we get started, because this is how I start my classes, according to the scale potatoes, how do you feel? How are you feeling today? You can type it in the chat. You can just tell me a 5. Air hugs. Me too. I feel like a 5 and also a 1 because I'm on spring break and I had ice cream for breakfast this morning. That's what I do, because I'm on spring break and I can. It was great. I was like, oh, this, I could get used to this. Um, Anybody else? Oh, I see in the chat, how are we feeling today? And I always start sharing with my students, and then 1 or 2 or 3 students will probably volunteer. I see here that Maria feels like a 4. Sophie feels like a 3. Most people are, ooh, a 6. Michelle feels like a 6. All right. And then we talk about like, oh, so 1 is, what is 1? Is 1 feeling, and then we describe the adjectives in Spanish. Oh, this number 1 is feeling lazy. How do you know? Well, it's on the couch, on el sofá, etc. So you can take as much time as you want with this, but I'll also do this in the target language, and I try to get as much language out of this activity as I can. And also I change this, like today was potatoes, but sometimes it's like pandas or whatever. All right, let's talk about reading. Enough about me. Let's talk about reading. The science of reading. There are 5 components of reading: word study, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, and motivation. And today I'm going to talk about a lot about vocabulary. All right, let's talk about reading. We think with words, therefore, this is what we're talking about today, vocabulary. To improve thinking, we teach vocabulary. And how do we teach vocabulary? Okay. And why is it important? Because it could take, this isn't the first language. I'm not sure, and I need to ask Bill Van Patten if the same thing applies to second language acquisition. But in your first language, it could take as many as 17 exposure to a new word in order for that person to own that word. Okay, and I'm going to show you some strategies for you to teach vocabulary to your students before you read, because it's very important that your students understand about 90% or more of the text. All right, and reading out loud should take place daily at all grade levels, including junior and high school. And we'll often think of reading out loud for elementary school, but no, we need to be doing this as well in middle school and high schools as well. And then in person, we usually read this together. Hi, Maria, greetings from Ohio. Children who struggle when reading texts aloud do not become good readers if left to read silently. Their disfluency merely becomes inaudible. And this is from the book. I'm reading this book right now, and I love this book. It's fantastic. I'm learning so many great things about reading. It's a passion of mine. I love to read. And then sadly, in the past, I think post-pandemic probably, I'm hearing a lot of students who do not like to read, but also some of them can't read. They're not reading at a grade level. So my job is to get them to not only like reading, but to be able to read independently. All right, more science, and we're almost done with science, and we're gonna go get to the practical stuff. Oh, this is the same thing again. Not sure why. Guess I copy pasted the same thing twice. I apologize for that. The reason why I time each word at a time is to give my students who are struggling to read time to process, and we read that paragraph or whatever paragraph we're reading chorally, and one word shows up at the time. It's a strategy that I use especially at the very beginning. French 1, we read like that a lot, and it's just an animation on PowerPoint. Okay, so how do we read? How do you read to your children when they're learning how to read? Look at the books that we read to our kids from 0 to 12 months old. We read books with a word or two and then a picture, right? Or several pictures. So the same way we read to our children when they're babies, I use the same idea, and this is how I read to my students as well. This is how I start building literacy, one word at a time. So the first thing we need to do in order to get the students to read a book independently is to pre-teach vocabulary. I like to organize my reading, my text before I start reading with my students. And then I divide the words on words that I can use TPR, total physical response, words that I can use, I can do a picture talk or a PQA or other CA strategies. And then a third column is the cognates. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that because not all cognates are created equal. And also sometimes there's low frequency words that show up once or twice in the book, and I can just explain it really quickly with a prop or just an example or a picture. For example, the word like lipstick shows up once in my text, but it's not that important to the text, just shows up once. I just show them really quickly, oh, a lipstick, here's a lipstick, who has a lipstick in the class? And then I move on. But if it's a high frequency vocabulary that is very important to understand the text, I will spend a lot of time. So the first two columns, I spend a lot of time with those words. Any questions so far? We all know what total physical response is? Yes? Okay. Okay, so first thing that we do with my students, they're gonna write down the vocabulary, el oso, the bear, mira, quiere, come. From these words, I can do a TPR for mira, quiere, and come, right? Also, I can do one with also, but I can also do PQA with also. But also could be like something like, okay, clase, show me also. Good job, Marisol. Okay, clase, show me mira. Great job, Maria. Great job. Okay, Maridol. Sorry, I called you Marisol. Maridol. All right. La clase mira a Maridol. La clase mira a JJ. JJ. La clase mira dramáticamente. Good job. La clase quiere. La clase come. La clase come rápidamente. La clase come lentamente, slowly, despacito, despacito. La clase come una pizza. La clase come y mira a JJ. JJ. La clase come una hamburguesa. You get the idea, right? We're gonna get a lot of repetition from TPR. Muéstrame un oso. Muéstrame un oso grande. All right. La clase mira un oso. Okay. So you get the idea, right? Lots of repetition, and I could take a lot of time with TPR. And TPR is just not for lower levels. I know I hear that often, and it's not. You can do TPR with any word as long as you can make a sound or a gesture to it. Here's the example of carcajea, se desmaya o se desmayó, se aferró, bostezar, estornuda o estornudar. As long as it is a word that you can do a gesture or a sound to it, you can do TPR. It's just not for the middle school kids. It's not just for elementary. I do it with my high school students. I do it with my seniors. My seniors love doing the gestures. Every semester, at the end of the first semester, I ask my students, what is the one thing that helped you learn French or Spanish? And they always say the gesture thing, the hand signals, the body language, the movement. They don't, I mean, I told them this called TPR, but they never remember it. So they call it the movement, the gestures. It's the one thing that was going to help your students remember vocabulary. Sometimes they're taking a quiz and they don't remember a word. I see them struggling, and then I do the gesture, and then immediately they remember what the word is. And they like go back to writing because they remember it. And there's a lot of different activities you can do with TPR. You can do the headband game. There's many things you can do. Right, so I'm trying to imitate how we read to our children, small children, right? So I will have a picture here and the word come, and then the meaning in English, and then I will ask the class questions. Come una pizza, sí o no? No, no. Él no come una pizza. Thank you for all of you who are participating. I only see a few of you on the screen. All right, so if I'm always referring to Maridol and Maria and Sophie and Jay, it's because of the people that I can see on my screen. Okay, la clase, el chico, the boy, come brócoli, ¿sí o no? Sí, muy bien, come brócoli. ¿Quién, who, en la clase come brócoli? Sophie, Maridol y JJ. Las tres comen brócoli. JJ, comes, and when I write this on the board, comes, when I add an S, that just means you eat. Do a little bit of Papa grammar there. JJ, tú comes brócoli frecuentemente. Frequently. Sí. Oh, clase, JJ come brócoli frecuentemente. Yo no como. And I will write como, I eat, on the board so my students know that I'm changing the verb. That's how you teach all of the different forms of the verb. It's another complaint that I hear often. But when you use CI, the students only learn the third person. Well, if you only teach them the third person, I agree. But I'm going to teach them all the forms. Yes, yo como brócoli, but no frecuentemente. Yo como pizza frecuentemente. Y tacos frecuentemente también. Sí. Maridol, ¿tú comes tacos frecuentemente? Oh, ¿y comes tacos de Taco Bell? You can write it in the chat if you want to. No, okay, clase, Maridol no come tacos de Taco Bell. Yo tampoco, me neither. All right, so you guys get the idea. I can spend as much time because my students are going to tell me what they like to eat, what they don't like to eat. The broccoli is because I do know that's going to get a strong reaction because a lot of kids really don't like broccoli. They'll eat it, but they don't particularly love it. It's going to get a strong reaction from my students. Some students actually do like broccoli, and they tell me the different ways that they eat it. Some students like broccoli, but not raw. Some students like broccoli, only like it steamed. They like it when it's part of in a pasta dish that they eat, that their moms make, etc. All right, here's another example how you can pre-teach vocabulary. This is super simple. I'm just gonna ask, es un tigre? You can show me your fingers, your hands, or you can type it in the chat, or in the classroom, I give them options. I have shy students who would never say oso, but they will show me number 2, right? And then, so I give them options to participate. Okay, es un tigre, es un oso, es un elefante. Muy bien. Es el oso tigre en inglés? What do you think that means? I always ask my students. Oh, yes, it means tiger. You're right. What about elefante? What do you think that means? Oh, it means elephant. You're absolutely right. And I can also use this picture to get a lot of vocabulary. Okay, so by that time, my students know the word vive, lives, and I can ask them, el oso vive, lives en las montañas, sí o no? Does he live in the mountains? Yes, no. Is it a big bear or is it a small bear? What is it, a white bear or is it a brown bear? Do you think this bear is happy, is angry, is sad based on the picture? So I'll spend a lot of time. My goal is to get a lot of repetition for the word also, which is going to be in our story. Okay, now you're gonna show me, I'm gonna say the word in English and you're gonna show me the gesture. So if the answer is also, you're gonna do this. If the answer is mira, you're gonna do this. This is just because I teach 87-minute blocks and my students need to move at some point. So this is a good way to get them to move. If it's quiere, you're gonna do this. And if it's come, you're gonna do this. All right. Okay, so bear. Show me the answer. Show me. Oh, good job, Maridol, Maria. Good job. He or she wants. He or she wants. Good job, right? He or she looks or watches. Yes. You can, oh, good job. You can also do the definition. For my upper level, what I do is I would say, es un animal muy grande, es un mamífero, and they'll tell me, oh, they'll show me the answer, okay? Es un sinónimo de, it's a synonym of observar. Oh, to look, to watch. So my upper levels, I would just give them the definition and they have in Spanish in the target language, and then they'll have to match it. I don't see anything in the chat, so I can continue. All right, here's another activity. And then again, I'm just reviewing. Let's just say we had a 3-day weekend, or when we come back after spring break, the students are not gonna remember the vocab. I'm just gonna go and say quiere. And all they have to do is tell me what the word means in English. Oh, good job. Tiene. And I wait. I don't give it away right. Oh, yes, tiene, he or she has. El oso, he or she, the bear. Ay. There is, there are. You can use this also to review TPR gestures as well. And I'm just going over the vocab that we learned. And notice how I don't shelter the grammar. Verbs are shown in both present tense and past tense because that's how I needed it for my story. I needed it in both tenses. And this is level 1. I think I did the story level 1. He or she tiene hambre, mira, come, etc. And at some point, I'm going to do a little bit of proper grammar here. ¿Cuál es la diferencia? What is the difference between grita and gritó? And gritó and agarró. What? Oh, it's the past tense. And how do we know? Oh, there's an accent mark on the O. And they call it the little line thingy. My students always forget it's called an accent mark. The little line thingy, the little dash on top of the O. And I'm like, yes, the accent mark. That tells me that is the past tense. Remember, not all of the verbs are going to have an accent mark, but a lot of them do, and that's really useful to determine if we're speaking in the present tense or the past tense. I think I explained once, it was called the predicate. They don't remember, nor is it important to my students. All they need to know is it's in the past tense. That grita is present tense, grito is the past tense. All right, so far so good. This is just animation. You can do this on Google Slides, I'm sure. And it's just reviewing the important structures, important verbs or words for a story. Just a way to review. It looks like a game. It's not. It's just a slideshow with some animations. Okay, here's another example. And it's the same thing. but with clouds. And tiene hambre, they're reading one word at a time, and all they have to say, he or she is hungry. And some kids will remember, has hunger. And I'm like, yes, because in Spanish, we have hunger. In French as well, by the way. But I tell them, yeah, in English, is hungry, it's fine. Okay. So same idea, just review. And remember, the students need lots of repetition in different contexts of the same vocabulary. And because I teach 87 minutes period, I can do TPR for about 20 minutes. Then I can do some PQA for another 10 to 15 minutes. But eventually I'm gonna need some other things, right? And I'm also gonna need movement. I am not a fan of block schedule, by the way. Okay, I'm gonna go fast because it's gonna be a lot of them. All right, another activity that I do with my students is ones that they know, I know that they know the vocabulary. Another way to review, we moved from words, now we're moving to sentences. So I'll do some PQA, but also another activity you could do is PQA, personalized questions and answers. What I did early when I was asking Maridol, oh, Maridol, do you eat tacos? I think it was Maridol that eats taco. And she's like, and then I asked her, what, do you eat them from Taco Bell? She's like, no. And then I asked JJ, do you eat broccoli? Do you eat broccoli frequently? That's PQA, personalized question and answers, yes. So another activity you could do, this is sort of a game, I guess. I have my one student, they're working in pairs with a partner. One student is facing the board, reading that sentence, and then the other student is facing the wall. So the person that is looking at the board is going to do the gesture, grita, yell, como un lobo. Oh, we have a gesture or a sound for lobo. Oh, and then the student that's facing the wall has to just simply guess what the sentence is. And then they'll switch. We'll do it again with another sentence. Habla, this is a gesture for habla, mucho y rápido. They'll do the gesture and then the other students try to guess. There's another way you can pre-teach vocabulary. I'll do a lot of these activities, not all of them in the same day, in order to make sure my students know the vocabulary. Here's another one, mira intensamente. Okay. All right, so next thing is let's talk about our cognates or our friends. They are not all created equal, and some students lack the ability to identify these cognates. So I don't assume the students know the word. I no longer assume that, because last year I was teaching a book and the word was vegetation, which is spelled just like vegetation in English. Absolutely the same. It just has 2 accent marks. And then the student asked me, what is vegetation? I'm like, vegetation? And the student just looks at me like, and I'm like, herbs, plants, trees. Oh, so the problem was not with the word. It's just the student had no idea what the word vegetation was. Another example from Spanish, about 2 years ago, a student asked me, eliminar, and I'm like, eliminate. Student had no idea what that meant. And I'm like, to get rid of something. Okay. So just because this is a cognate doesn't mean the students are going to understand. So what I do now is I pick some of them, and then it's called a cognate check. I just double check that we're all on the same page. And the students who know that estudiante is student are going to feel super smart. Like, oh, I knew. Some students might not know, they can't figure it out because they're not strong readers in English to begin with. So they'll take this time to like, oh, some of them I have seen them writing this down. It's like some of the words. You'll be surprised. Tímido. A lot of students did not know that tímido exists in English, timid, but they do know that it means, some of them know it's shy, so they will say shy, either one. Bilingüe, bilingual, you're right. Intensamente, oh yes, intensely. And then I explained to them that adverbs in Spanish and in mente, some of them, and then that is equivalent to ly in English. So I do a few examples, románticamente, romantically, etc., etc. Grammar, teaching a little bit of grammar, not that much. Not too much. I am demure when it comes to grammar. It's just a joke. Emergencias, emergencies, etc. And se escapa, escapes. Just to make sure that we know what those cognates are, because some of them do not know. All right, so again, just a quick, I don't do all of them, but I do some of them that I have seen over the years, especially if it's a story that I have done before, like, oh, I know that some students might struggle with this one. Some of them are easy, some students may struggle with that one. Okay, so I prepare my students to read and to interact with the text. I pre-teach vocabulary, picture talk, anticipation guide, and better reading. These are some other activities you could do. So for picture talk, there's this picture. Yes, clearly I'm going to talk about a bear, but it's not that fun. What else can you say about this picture, right? It's a bear, it's brown, it's looking at a rock, mira una roca. There's not much, but what about this picture? Look at this picture. How it's fun and engaging. We can find out like what is happening, what happened before, what's going to happen next. How did the bear get to the house? What's happening in the picture? Some students notice like a lot of things, like some students notice like Diet Coke, and I'm like, where do you see Diet Coke? And yes, it is at the top, I guess. So it's a lot of vocabulary and a lot of engagement and questions you can get from this picture. So choose your pictures wisely. That one, it's okay. This one, better. And what did I do? Google bear. I just Google bear and big bear. And then I think I did bear breaking into a house or something like that. And then I found that picture. So this is much better picture. Okay, another thing you could do, this is especially for level 3s and 4, if we're reading an article, AP, they need to read lots of articles. We'll do a mystery prediction, and I tell them get in your groups, and I'm gonna give them a few quotes in a little envelope, and they have to read one quote at a time, and then form a prediction. So here's one quote, tienes que ayudarme. So I want you can write it in the chat if you want to, just to practice. Create a prediction about the text that we're going to read. What are we going to read about? Tienes que ayudarme. And then you're going to discuss in your group, what do you think this story will be about after each quote or prediction? Helpers, good job, Ari. Helpers, yes, possible. I'm going to give you another hint. You're going to go back within your group. And here's the other one. Buscan alimentos. Problemas, good job. A bear in trouble, says JJ. Buscan alimentos. They look for food. A hungry bear. Oh, we're getting closer. A hungry bear. 719 incidentes con animales, there's a typo on animales, con animales salvajes. 719 incidents with wild animals. Any other predictions somebody wants to write in the chat? Parks with bears. Posiblemente, that's what I tell my students, possibly. I'll take all the responses. The thing is that the students are reading the quotes, they're going to be in the text, and they're getting ready to interact with the text. So I'll take all of the possibilities. And then I will ask, what made you say that? What part of, because the first one says you have to help me, then they're looking for food, then wild animals, a bear breaking into a house. Adriana, all right, possibly Adriana. Right, so I give you some ideas. How do you get your students to read before we actually read, right? All the little things I do to make sure my students feel confident with this text. Now, during reading, there's a few things that I have to make sure that my students are following along and they're reading with me. Some of them are not. So I do a few little things that I learned over the years from wonderful educators. Gesture reading, I learned this from Alina Filipescu. She's a teacher here in California. And all you're going to do is students are going to do gestures to certain words. Which words? The ones that we learn TPR for. And what I do in order to remember, because I will forget, I'll just either underline or I make that text in a different color or I make it in bold, just so I remember which words I have to do the gestures. Then other activities, beep beep. I learned this either Justin Slocum Bailey or Alicia Cardenas. I can't remember. One of them, I learned the activity. So all I do is I'm going to read the text, but I will make some mistakes when I'm reading the text. Like if it says pelota, I'm going to say guante. And when the students hear that mistake, they're going to say beep beep. That's it. Just to make sure that they're following along. The next activity is alerta, which is similar to beep beep. I'm going to say a word that is not true. And when students hear the word that is not in the text, they're going to stand up and say alerta or alert if you teach French. Again, I teach 87 minutes class and my students, some of them do not love doing brain breaks. So I just kind of build in the brain breaks or the little pauses or movement into my lesson. Some of them do. Some classes like doing brain breaks more than the others, but some I do know that they're like, oh, I'm gonna do these silly things right now. Not sure why. So I pick my battles, right? If I have a class that they don't particularly love brain breaks, I'm gonna make sure that they get some movement within the lesson. Snap or clap reading. So basically I'm gonna read, and anytime I either snap my fingers or I clap, then the students have to say that word that I'm not saying. It's like a closed activity, kind of fill in the blank. So I either snap my fingers or I clap. And when I do that, the students know that they have to say that word that I'm not saying. Am I speaking too fast? I see some people like, no, okay, good. Because I do speak fast when I get nervous. And feel free to stop me anytime. Thank you. Read and highlight. You can do this as during reading or as a post reading. If I'm reading to the students, I give them a highlighter and I say, as I read to you, just highlight everything that you understand. That's it. And it's just to make sure that they're following along.
You do have a question asking
Yes.
you to explain snap, clap again.
So it's one thing or the other. So I'm going to read the text, and at some point I'm going to pause, and I'm going to either snap my fingers or I'm going to clap. And when I do that, students know that they have to say that word that I didn't say. So hay un oso en la clase. I'm gonna read hay un oso, and I'm gonna snap my fingers, and then the students know that they have to say clase. It's just to make sure that they're reading with me, that they're following along with me. All right, what else do we read in classes? So I'm gonna, facts, informational text. I love this. I learned this from Carol Gap, if I remember correctly. And now I love it. I just find random facts about anything that we're reading and we read it together. So I'm gonna read and you're just gonna follow along with me, okay? Yes, thank you, JJ. I'm gonna read and you're just gonna follow along. Los osos son grandes, fuertes y rápidos. Número 2. Los osos polares son los osos más grandes de todas las especies de osos. Now, number 3, I'm going to do the snap clap. Okay. Existen 8 especies. And the student's supposed to say the word diferentes.
Diferentes.
Good job, Claudia. Diferentes en el mundo. And I'm going to do it with clap, same activity. Los osos son muy inteligentes y tienen muy buena memoria. That's it. It's just to make sure they're following along with you. You can stump, you can make a sound, it's whatever.
I like that one.
Easy, right? No prep. I love no prep. All right, so we read the four sentences together. Now, what I tell my students is with a partner, explain one thing you understood. So they're gonna read basically the same text again, right? Read one thing that you understood. If I have non-Spanish speakers here, I want you to be brave and tell me one thing that you understood from this text. You can type it in the chat. You can unmute yourself. Just one, not all of them, just one thing you understood. And I always tell my students, it doesn't need to be word by word. It's just what you understood.
Buena means beautiful or nice, maybe.
Which one?
Buena.
Bueno, good.
Good, okay.
Yes. So, los osos son muy inteligentes y tienen buena memoria. And then what I'm going to do, thank you, Maria, appreciate you. I'm going to ask the students to volunteer. Who wants to tell me what number one means? And then basically we're reading the same text 3 times without them noticing. One time I read to them, they follow it along. Number 2, choose one and tell your partner what you understood. Number 3, who wants to volunteer to translate number 1 or tell me what number 1 means in English? And then 2, 3, and 4. Because I took my time typing those 4 sentences. So I want to make sure that we actually use them for a lot of things, right? And I also took my time to find the little bear and then the logo of the world to make sure my student understands. So I'm just not going to read them quickly and move on. Okay, all right. So, hay un oso grande. This I would use gesture reading. We have a word in Spanish, a gesture in my class for I. We have one for bear. So I will read and then students just have to do the gesture. El oso entra por la ventana. Él entra en la clase de español. El oso quiere estudiar español porque quiere hablar español. No hay personas en la clase de español. No hay ni estudiantes ni maestros. Or you can say profesores if it's easier. Hay una barrita de granola en la clase. El oso quiere la barrita de granola. And I think is that it? So notice how simple that text is. This is Spanish 1, by the way. I taught the word I, oso, ventana, entra, quiere, hablar. We learned that like maybe the first few weeks. I and no I. And then I think that's pretty much it. The rest were pretty much cognates, right? So this is the story that we read to my students, and I read that slow to my student. And it is very important. I'm learning Chinese right now. I'm learning Mandarin. And we were doing a lesson with a Mandarin teacher in about, I think Valentine's Day. And my Chinese teacher kept saying the word Friday. And I kept hearing number 5, because in Mandarin, Friday is the 5th day. She said this like 14 times, and I'm like, why is she asking me so many questions about number 5? Like, I was so lost and so confused. So it just reminded me of the importance of going slow, because that one little thing really threw me off. And I speak 4 languages. Just imagine how a high school child feels in your class. And I do know English and Spanish have a lot more in common than Mandarin and English, but still, I was struggling. So just think about how your students feel. Speak that slow. And I'm Dominican. If I can speak slow, you guys can speak slow too. You guys know Dominicans will speak like, oh. All right, so that's the story that I read to my student. Hace mucho en las montañas. Okay, this is for either gesture reading, you can do with this one, sound effect reading. And what I do is I give little post-it notes to my students And I say, when you hear the word viento, you're going to do whoosh. You can give this to only one student. Sometimes you can give several students the same post-it, especially those kids that I know who get distracted. So like I make 3 post-its for like viento. Every time you hear viento, you're gonna do what? Whoosh. And then other students are gonna do oso, and then other students are gonna do secreto, shh. It's called sound effect reading, and this one is from Totally Comprehensible. What is his name? Keith Toda. I think that's his first name. Totally Comprehensible. And then grita, ah. So any word that you can do a sound effect, that's what they're going to do a sound for. And again, I just write it on the post-it note because I'm going to read the same story about 3 times. I have 3 French 1 or 3 Spanish 1 classes usually. So I just write on a post-it note. I collect my post-its at the end of the class, and then I use it for the next class. So, Maridor, you're gonna be secreto. So when you hear secreto, you're gonna do shh. Maria, you're gonna be toca. When you hear toca, you're gonna do toc toc. Maria, toc toc. That's your gesture. Oh, look who's here. Karen Rowan is at the gym and like joining us. I just realized this Karen is there. All right, so here we go. Viento. Cesar, do you want to be viento? Do you want to be the wind for a story? Cesar, when you hear viento, you're going to do whoosh. And if you can unmute yourself, just go like this. So I know you're whoosh. Okay? All right. Hace mucho viento, Cesar. Whoosh, good job. En las montañas, un oso, JJ, you are the bear, un oso, entra a la clase en secreto. Shh, good job, Maridol. El oso, good job, JJ,
Toc,
toca,
toc.
María,
Toc, toc.
toc, toc, toca la puerta. No hay personas en la clase, etc. El oso, ella mira el oso, good job, y grita, so that's sound effect reading. Just find some words that you can do sound effects to. You're also teaching them onomatopoeic sounds. I teach my students in Spanish, we don't say knock, knock. We say toc, toc. Same as in French, toc, toc. All right, so that's sound effect reading. I don't know.
You do have a question?
Yes.
What happens when you have students who catch on more quickly and it goes too slowly for them? And when you have big comprehension gaps with students?
Okay, that is my class. That is my life. So students who go super fast, I make sure that they feel appreciated. I'm like, oh, great job. You're so smart. You're so right. But then at some point, I'm going to tell them, especially in Spanish classes, we end up having those native speakers. I tell them to count to 10 in their minds and wait. Another trick that I learned from Alicia Cardenas is you tell them a secret word, like read. And for example, in my school, the mascot is Lancers. Yeah, I know, Lancers. So they have to wait until they hear the word Lancers in order to respond to any question that I'm asking. That gives time. And I tell my students, I am a slow processor. I need time to process the information. So if you tell me the answer, I feel like defeated. I explain that to my students. So let's just wait. Let's be kind to a community of learners. I know you know the answers. I'll tell them, I know you do know, but let's just wait and give everybody the opportunity to think and to process that information. So I say, when you hear the word Lancers, then you can answer my question or move on. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
You are also close to time, Diana.
Oh boy. Okay, what else? Prose reading activities. So true or false, who said it, who did it, take quotes from the novel, from the book, from the text, and have students just tell me who said it, who did it. Games, and for games, please go to Senora Chase and the Comprehensible Classroom. Those are my go-to blogs for games. Totally Comprehensible. Keith Toda also has some good stuff there. I didn't invent anything. All this stuff I learned from other people, from going to conferences and observing other people. AB partner game. Probably not gonna have time for that. Read and draw, my favorite. Give the students the text, they can reread it and draw what they understood. And then you get some time for yourself. possible or probable. Some sentences, and they have to figure out what is possible, what is probable. You have to teach them the difference. Opinion versus fact. This is very challenging because even for my seniors, they struggle with that. So I give them some sentences about the text, and they have to figure out, is it an opinion or is it a fact? A fact will be the bear entered the class through the window. That is a fact. An opinion will be he entered because, I don't know, the window was open or because it was hot outside. I don't know. That would be an opinion because it's not in the text. Emoji, we're gonna do that one. I think we do have time for that one. Smash Doodle. I think also Senora Chase has information about Smash Doodle. Read and highlight. You saw the picture of my students reading and highlighting. It's my favorite and also gives me a few minutes off for myself. All right, cierto falso. And there's so many ways you can do cierto falso. You can do students grab a highlighter if it's true. They don't touch it if it's false. They can clap if it's true. They can stomp if it's false. I have so many ways to do true or false because, again, I teach 87 minutes period. Students, if it's false, they can stand up and say, alerta, alert, okay? El oso entra por la ventana. I read it and then wait for the magic word, Lancers, and then now you give me your response, true or false. I try not to take stuff home to grade because my time is now spending on flamenco, crocheting, and I have a sewing machine now. So those are my 3 things that I'm spending my time, and I'm trying to finish a book, but that's not happening. Let's see, find the extra details, read the same text, and then add 2 or 3 details. Same text, just add 2 or 3 things, and students have to reread on their own and find the 3 extra details. All I added was like the word abierta, oh, there's a typo in ventana, number 1. And I think bandera, and I think planta. I think those are the, so they read the same thing. Texto A, texto B will have, and I told them there's extra details on text B, find them. Okay, this is the emoji. This is fun. With the little whiteboards, I write 3, give them emojis, and students have to write down, you're gonna write it in your chat because we're running out of time. What sentence is this? How do they know? Well, they read the text and can I use the text, Madame Castro? Yes, you can use the text because I want you to go back and reread again. Yes, and all they have to do is find the sentence in the thing and then write it on the white mini board, write down the answer, and then I'll tell them, wait until I say Lancer or muéstrame, and then show me the answer. I think it was something similar to that. La maestra mira al oso. And I said mira because that's the verb that I taught them. But ve is the same. Yes and yes. All right, let's see. Thank you. How did I do on time?
Great.
All right, now I have time for questions.
Yeah, you can type anything in the chat or you can unmute yourself. Certificates will automatically be emailed. If you needed to say anything specific, just reply and say that you need that you need to say your specific PD time, and we can get that to you.
And I also saw there's a Dominican person. I think I read that. Oh, un saludo para ti, Diana. También soy dominicano. Oh, César Guerrero. Yay.
Sí, Diana, ¿me escuchas?
Sí.
¿De qué parte vienes?
Del este, de a provincia de Atomayor.
No me digas, yo soy del Ceibo.
Del Ceibo, all right, yeah.
Yeah, we are neighbor.
Somos vecinos, yes.
Contento de conocerte.
Igualmente, César.
Michelle would like to know, how long do you spend on one story?
Ooh, how long do I spend on that story? That also story, by the way, it's something that I got from the news. That happened in California. A bear entered the classroom and stole the granola on the earthquake emergency kit. That happened last summer in California. The last name of the teacher is Salmon. I could not believe that. Yeah, so and then after that we read, I show them the kids like the screenshot from ABC News, like, oh, es una historia real. So that story about, it was a simple story. I think it took me, I teach block schedule, so I sit my classes 3 times only per week. It took me about a week to teach it, to do the pre-reading and the post-reading and the games, and then I moved on to a new story. Some stories I can linger for 2 weeks if they're longer, but this one was like a few sentences only.
Tracy asked, can you elaborate on your comment about not taking work home? What were you saying is the time saver?
So, and I may have to, so there are things that I pay for, uh, that if I can pay for it, I don't have to spend my time on. And there's so many places out there. Voces is one of them. Senor Woolley, anything that I can buy, teachers pay teachers, anything that I can buy that is already done for me, I'll spend the money, or the district money, if there's money available. Try not to spend your own money, try to spend the district money if possible. But I also use Canvas for grading at our school. So a quiz, wow, I'm not gonna grade quizzes anymore. Canvas will do it for me. They'll self-grade it unless it's a writing, right? So I will try to do a lot of those, and then a lot of games. The true or false activity, why would I wanna type 10 or 20 questions true or false and then have to take it home to grade it? No, just do it. It's a formative assessment. I can see who understands and who doesn't understand. It's less work for me. So if I can buy it, I'll buy it. If not, I will make sure that I use something that is self-graded, in Canvas or other GimKit, Kahoot, any of those. It gives me a lot of data of what students know and don't understand.
Claudia would like to know, do you do the activities while you are reading, at the end, or by chapters?
If it's a novel, well, that's a whole nother presentation. But for a novel, I will do some activities pre-reading, some activities during reading, and always post-reading activity. A game usually, and then the other thing I would do is a reread activity, where like you are going to interact with the text a second time on your own, because I need a little bit of time for myself, because I've been talking for a lot of the minutes of class.
Jean or Jeannie, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. With your upper levels, do you make the stories longer and more complex?
Yes. Usually, not necessarily longer, but sometimes yes, but more higher level structure, like the carcajea, right? It's not high frequency, but it was gonna show up in the article that we were reading. I'm like, I need to pre-teach that word carcajea somehow.
And do you do an assessment at the end of the week? If so, what does it look like?
Yes, an assessment could be a time right. It could be a quiz in Canvas just to make sure that they understood the vocabulary, comprehension questions. Can they use the text? Yes, because I want them to reread again. And most of my assessments are not showing comprehension, not showing, forgot the word, not output, production, but mostly did you understand the text? Right? So yes, can I use the text? Absolutely. You want to read again? Of course, go for it. And
Maria,
yes.
oh, sorry.
Go.
I was gonna say Maria has her hand up. I apologize. I thought you were finished.
Yeah, can I come in just for a second? Is that okay? I just wanted to thank Diana for this amazing presentation. I found it like really helpful and full of practical tips. That's what I really like, and not just like that's theory based. Yeah, the theory centered presentations. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to know, is there a way to get in touch with you somehow, like any contacts, or that's not possible?
I am on Facebook a lot. And then I think I put the name of my blog, Senor, I'm gonna put it right here, Castro Code. But yeah, social media and in person at some point, hopefully.
Thank you so much. Okay.
I think I put it there. There you go. Oh, thank you. Oh, that was very sweet of you to say. Yes, my idea of presentation is, can somebody go back on Monday or tomorrow to work and use one or two things that they learned with me. Because when I go to a presentation task, I want practical things. Theory is nice, but I also like things that I can use in my classroom the next day.
Yeah, that's right.
Shayla would like to know, how do you address false cognates and Spanish words that change meaning depending upon where you are or where you're from?
So those are actually the ones that they usually remember. Once I explain to them, like, oh, by the way, clase, in español, embarazada does not mean embarrassed. It means pregnant. They'll usually remember that. It's funny because it's just so odd. And then they start saying it just to make fun, like to be funny, like, oh, estoy embarazada. And I'm like, I act like that. No. And then they're like, no, señora, I know it means pregnant in Spanish. But yes, I make a mental note, like, oh, I think this word's gonna give you another word that I never knew will give my students trouble. Deportes. They think of it as deportation. And I'm like, what? Never. I would never imagine. But a few students told me, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I think of when I hear that word. So I'm like, no. We're not deporting anyone. If we're deporting anyone, it's gonna be to the baseball field. I'll say something like that, and then they'll remember, oh, it's a sport.
Claudia says, at the beginning, you mentioned that they read for pleasure. In which language do they read?
So the target language. So I teach Spanish and French. Again, I know some teachers are huge fans of doing what do you call it? FVR level 1. But in my experience with my population of students, I found out that it's better if I wait till level 2. It just works better in 10 minutes at the most. I am also aware that I have 2 or 3 students. I know they're not reading because they're not strong readers in their target language to begin with. So I have a lot of comic books, and a lot of those books I only have 1 or 2 or 3 words at a time with lots of pictures. At least I know they're looking at pictures. So those like super basic books, I know they're in level 2 and they should be able, but I know in my heart that they're not. They're not really reading. They're looking at pictures. So I let them. They're looking at pictures. And then one time I remember the kids like, is limonada lemonade? And I'm like, yeah, believe it. Yeah, that word, limonada. And I'm like, yes, lemonade. So at least I knew he was trying. So yes, they read in the target language. I have a library. I know Voces Digital, and I know because I got some great books last time in Michigan from you guys. But there are so many buy comics. I have a subscription to these online magazines. I can't remember the title, but like from Scholastic. I have a variety because I do know that I have students, especially boys, especially students who are not strong readers. I know they're not only going to look at pictures and actually not reading. I'm okay with that because they're not bothering anybody. And it's only 3 out of 27. So I'm like, it is what it is. I choose my battles.
Okay, it looks like that might be it. If no one else has any other questions.
Karen said, yeah, my Spanish teacher in high school 40 years ago taught me that false friend, and I remember it ever since. Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for attending, and thank you for the lively chat. Thank you for all your participation, and thank you, Diana, for presenting for us tonight.
That was fun. And Karen Rowan joined us. That's funny. Muchísimas gracias. Gracias a ti, María. Thank you. Gracias, Michelle. Gracias, Claudia. Gracias, Gabriela. María. Gracias. Mostly Spanish teachers, I'm assuming.
Yeah, looks like it. Okay, well, at this time, we will conclude the webinar. So everyone have a wonderful evening.
All right. Bye, JJ.
Bye.
That was fun. Totally fun.